Joshua Johnson that inspired this whole meeting, so to speak. He was always a favorite of mine, and little did I know that he was from Baltimore, born in Baltimore originally. And of course, he tended to have inspired myself. He was such a more or less remote artist, not really realizing who he was until years from the time he was born in Baltimore. I think that was somewhere in the 1730s, 1730s, no greater than that. However, he was able to make quite an impression on the community. Number one, back in 1790, the population of Baltimore was 46,000 citizens, 46,000 people that inhabited Baltimore. And we fast forward 10 years later, a decade later, we came in at about 36,192 residents. Out of those, 5,761 was free black folks living in Baltimore during slavery. The slaves were 4,762. So we had more blacks in Baltimore that was free than we had the slave brothers and sisters. Joshua happened to be a free black, a free, might say, cardholder, householder, he was referred to at that time. And of course, he seems to have had an aspiration ever since he was about 5 years of age to paint. However, he was able to work and began to create works. Portraiture became his goal. And therefore, he would go out and work and do likenesses. However, having been in Baltimore most of his life, he was able to become inspired by very, very few artists at that time, black or white, was actually working in great capacity. Most of the artists that back in those times that was able to study, perhaps in Europe, was usually wealthy, quite wealthy. Joshua, it was said that he may have been inspired by Charles Hale and his family. They were known painters at that time, quite popular. Of course, he named all his sons after great artists, Rembrandt Hale, Titian Hale, Theobald Rubens Hale, like that. But Joshua was very unique because, number one, to be able to go out like that and work and be a person of color during that time was quite challenging. However, he was able to have quite a commercial enterprise by being able to paint panels like they did during the fair days where you just stick your head in and then you paint the face. He had already prepared the background and the suits. You saw everybody look like they had a Brooks Brothers 1700 turn of the century suit. But a lot of them were farmers didn't even own the suit. So he would already prepare that, so when he went out, all they had to do was stick the face in, and he would paint their likeness. And so would the wives of these gentlemen would do likewise. He had the gowns already pre-painted. So that was quite clever, but his time quite creative in terms of his marketing. And Joshua seemed like he would take trips out to Harford County, from what I'm told. And he was able to, one day, before someone said that the McCormick family was interested in him doing the family. So, of course, the way it went during that time, he was thrilled, of course, about that. Very wealthy family. McCormick Spice, they evolved from that family. And so far, he was able to be delighted. So he painted these portraits of the McCormick family. And do we have any of Joshua's work, by the way, as I'm talking?
Who's doing the slideshow?
Could we pull that up?
Yeah, it's in the slides. If you
Oh,
go
yeah,
forward.
Should I?
I'll do it for
Let's
you.
see.
You got it,
Pick
Joe?
it up. Here we go, right there. Of course, this particular piece here was a portrait that Joshua painted. I think this was Cobra, wasn't it? Yeah. This was an African-American priest, one of the clerics. It got the title of it, Portrait of a Cleric. To your right is the McCormick family that was quite prominent during that time. Of course, this particular piece was in the Maryland Historical Society for quite a while. We'll move on just for the sake of time. Okay, this is a very interesting approach. He was known for his compositions. During that time, anatomy wasn't really big because most of your American artists, white or black, had not really studied anatomy during that time. That's why your likenesses usually were sort of kind of flat and what they would call folk art or primitive, you might say. Of course, he did quite well. He was big with his buttons, gold and silver buttons. In this case, they actually owned these clothes. They didn't have to stick their head in a little hole. They were already quite well-to-do, so to speak, and they owned their own wardrobe. So was the minister. That's his own garment. Okay, another interesting piece by Joshua. He never signed any of his work, by the way. You never see any signatures on his work. However, there was a critic named Dr. Pleasant, and he was able to understand that anyone can forge your name, any capable forger, but your signature is within the technique and the brushstroke of your work. That's how you're able to determine whether or not a work is by the hand of that master. The guy, Bill Truster, that used to be the chairman of the board of the Gas and Electric Company, he overheard me talking about one of his Charles Pell's son, Rembrandt Pell. They had it in the lobby. It just sold, painted, I think at Park Benet in New York. And they had it on display. And I just happened to be in paying a bill for my mom, and they overheard me talking about it. So with that, he invited me up to his office. He was the chairman of the board of BG&E. And so this is somewhere in the 80s. And he had a portrait on his wall. And he asked me, he said, who painted that portrait? I said, the gentleman in the portrait. It's a self-portrait. He says, who is he? I said, Charles Pell. He said, it's not signed. Same like with Joshua. I said, well, it's considered an attribution attributed to the hand of that master. It doesn't have to be signed. That's what's going to determine the authenticity of that painting. Okay, we move on. All right, this is just to show you some examples. Oh, get back. I wanted to honor this gentleman since I'm fortunate enough to be here, number one. And I'm speaking of Joshua. And I also like to thank some of his supporters, like the McCormick family. Before they can become a great artist, there must be a great audience. And that's why a lot of artists take so long to become known, because the audience has not yet caught up with this artist's talent. And so the McCormick family recognizes his talents, the pastor, and so with so many other, Westwood, so many prominent families. They didn't mind him coming in, doing portraits of their children, and he was known to put little animals in the portrait with children. Usually maybe another things like a book, props they call it. Okay, now to kind of reiterate a little bit, get back. Joshua was in the war, it was living during the War of 1812, when the British bombed the White House, and they declared war on England. And of course, Joshua had to have heard some interesting conversations because it really terrorized folks to think of someone bombing the White House. You know, that was much greater than Pearl Harbor at the time. James Madison was the president. He fled the White House. The British burned it all the way down to the ground with the exception of one building. And therefore, the War of 1812 had already started. And the British tried to invite the blacks to join their ranks so that they could be free. They didn't realize that over half of the blacks in Baltimore was already free. And their mind was, should I do this? And I got a career situation coming on. We're American, we're all American. And by the way, why don't first you guys free the blacks over there? This is the sugarcane fields, for starters. So that was kind of what was promoted to the black community. However, there were still blacks who were not free, and a lot of them ran to the British side. And so they started fighting, and of course, they organized a defense and safety defense of the city. 4,000 people, patriots, got together to defend, prepared to die, rather than to let them come in and have their way. The general that they sent in, Wellington, stayed back and, of course, pushed the men forward to take over things. They were so cocky and arrogant about it. He said, I live anywhere I want to in Baltimore, because they had to come through Baltimore really to be effective. So therefore, the men here armed themselves, and they cut off the Chesapeake Bay, and where the only way that the cargo could get through, they had to pass through that little needle, they had to thread that needle. And all the products and food stuff was going bad on the docks, rotten, and so forth like that. It was terrible. However, they finally came in, about 6,000 British broke through and started to come in. They backed up and let them come on in. They kept coming arrogant, and they backed up. Finally, when they got in, a sharpshooter from Baltimore killed Ross, that was the head perpetrator, the top military subject that was leading. And then some type of, they caused a diversion, like they were getting ready to take over the docks so that they could escape, really. And it just all night long, bombs thrown and people dying, and all this was terrible. And but finally, throughout the night, when Francis Scott Key wrote the Star Spangled Banner about this whole thing, when the dust cleared and the smoke cleared, the British was picking up folks trying to get out of here, because they was able to not only survive, but a lot of Purple Hearts, a lot of heroes was generated as a result. Joshua's work really got into the man. Then he became to General Smith, General Stricker, and quite a few others that you would track back to perhaps Parallel Historical Society and some of the history places that you can find those facts that's documented. And so there we go. Again, we are able to see how Americans come together at a time of need. And black folks and black men in particular, and women, was always the most patriotic people, because most of at least half the African Americans are native that owned the land and African that built it. So nobody can be any more American than that. So that's kind of where we stand, always stood. And it's always the thing that we have to keep moving. So with that, I appreciate that. And I want to thank Mr. Fred Cager, David, and the young sister that I just met for inviting me. What was the first name? Angela, yes. I'm like Mr. Bouncing my name. So we move on. You know, I have a lot more to say about each subject, but we got to keep moving. Okay, this is me. On the left, we used to have a show at the Drew Hill called the Lake Show at Drew Hill Park. That was me in 1966 at that show around that lake. They had artists lined all the way around that fence at that time. That was a regional show. Okay, to the right is, of course, anyone in the world recognized him, Muhammad Ali. They did a march on Washington. The oldest Native American led the march in 1978. I did this piece called Native Spirit for the bicentennial during 1976. I was looking for Marlon Brando because he was quite an advocate at that time, Native American. And I come across Ali, and he said, you know how he was. You say you're looking for who? He said, I'm the greatest in the world. You're going to walk past me. So he ended up with the piece. He took the piece from me. So that was in his suite at the Hay Islands Hotel right across from the White House in 1978. Okay? We go way back, by the way. I met Ali when I was in my teens, and he was in his early 20s, because his uncle lived third door from me right in Baltimore. When he would come, he would stay with him. Okay. Okay. To the left was an early studio of mine right across the street from the old Poly on North Avenue. That picture was taken. Of course, they got Albert Einstein there. They got Sammy Davis right there under my leg. You can't see Ella James, that is to my lower left right there. Of course, there's a piece in the middle. I would have that piece exhibited constantly. That's a more. Okay, all right. Well, let's go back. To the right, that was taken from an ad in Ebony magazine when I first marketed The Crying Child. That was in Ebony. And when you go back to that one, they had all of the African American masters in that same place that opened up the article on Charles White, Romac Beard, and all of them at that time. And that was in 1973. Okay. To the left was a shot of me at the Greater Baltimore Art Festival downtown around the Charles Center area. Okay, to the left. That's when I first broke the market with the child. That's the original at the top. You can't see the bottom, but there were prints of that. And that was Native Spirit again, an earlier one. Miles Davis is right behind me. And to the right, that was a tour that the General gave me in Indiantown Gap, Pennsylvania. I was invited there. I was his guest for 3 days on the lake. He was in charge of 18,000 men. That was General Meyer. I was commissioned to do his poetry. Okay. And I met the governor then with Governor Shapp, Governor Milton Shapp. And they hung that in the governor's mansion and so forth. I did a whole tour, inspected the men with General Meyer, and I was his guest for over 3 days. That was quite an event. To the right, there's an early photograph of me. I was kind of fly in those days. But that's Milton Allen, Judge Allen. He was the first black African American state's attorney, just before Kurt Smoke. And it was Larry Gibson that commissioned that at that time.
Is that pencil?
I know that's all on canvas. Mm-hmm. Yeah, all on canvas. Okay. Okay. Of course, to the left is Billy Murphy at an exhibit I had during the NAACP. They asked me would I share some of my work. That's on the blog when you go to my site. And you'll hear the interviews. And he and I go back quite a few years, 40, 50 years, and he was just kind of giving me a testimony, trying to really giving the media a testimony about our relationship, how he respected me as an artist. And that's why I blush. He's just quoting on pretty heavy. And to the right is Cicely Tyson. She was one of the first to take me out to lunch because she wanted to acquire the painting of Little Baby with the Tear. And so, but that's a shot that we could fast forward. That was later. She was just on the tour doing the autobiography of Jane Pittman. And she didn't realize that I was in the audience. So when I came in, when I made her aware that who I was, and of course she just really got related. She was once married to Miles Davis. I knew her. Okay, that's when I did the Super Fight poster. That was in Ring Magazine, Sport Magazine. Oh man, Players. That was like kind of like the Black Playboy at that time. So just did a series of ads. Of course, to the right is Mr. William Lou Willie Adams, owner of Mondawmin Mall, and just some serious real estate in this city, and the one that inspired the legal lottery. He tried to make it legal, but they wouldn't let him. So he was able to enjoy the fact that he was really a venture capitalist. Really that's what he was. He was not what some tried to imply that he was a gangster, but he was really a venture capitalist. Every dime he made, he tried to find a way to make it legal. And he succeeded. He really did. So that was a portrait. I was the only one that ever wanted to do a portrait of him. And I did it in charcoal, very detailed charcoal, because he was a very simple man. He didn't drive the Cadillac. He didn't show off. He was very, very conservative. And I really was inspired by his image and his character. Okay, that's me as good as I care. That was in the Jet magazine at this time. Of course, that was what was running there. Okay. To the right, that's Reverend Harvey Johnson. He's like the Mr. Civil Rights during his time in Delaware. And he was pastor of Union Baptist Church. And from time to time, I'll reach back like that and do something that should be done and carry it over, so to speak. Okay, that's a friend of mine, and Al Apple, we call him. He's a poet and a gifted writer. And he did some things on me. I did that sketch of him down in Fells Point. He was Russian and Sicilian. So I said, boy, you sure got the best of both worlds. But this is Willie Diggs, we call him. He was just a sportsman. He liked the racetracks, he liked high living, good living. And he's a guy that I knew most of my life. And of course, I'm saying happy birthday to Mr. Leonard Bernstein. This is his birthday year. He was quite a guy. I did this drawing of him back in 1964. And of course, he passed away in 1990, I believe that was. And Rabbi Mary Saltzman did a real serious article on him, comparing him with Adam. A very interesting read, and to use my drawing and gave me written credit for it and for the check in the mail. Yeah, so that piece there, this year I just put it up just to give him his props because he was a very liberal guy. He was a very, very decent person and a maestro and a gifted musician. And by the way, I've been doing musicians for probably 7-8% of my career. Okay, that was just one of the secret hands right there, the punch line. Okay, and I haven't spoke now in just about since my son was born. Yeah. Okay, that's old Blue Eyes. Convert. Well, they can see Sandy over there, but that's a piece that I did of Frank Sinatra. That's the child right there. You recognize the crying child. And that's the native spirit piece. That's catalog. Of course, some of the artists, jazz artists, musicians that I was speaking of course, most folk over a certain age would recognize both of them, Nat Cole and Nancy Wilson. That's Duke Ellington, the maestro, and of course our Baltimore's own Lady Day, Billie Holiday. Although both have stories that would inspire me to do them, but it's a bit too lengthy to get into at this juncture. Okay, and that was a piece I did on the right. I just call it Three Wise Men. And we come out of the Hasidic tradition. From time to time, I've done a series on all different kinds of cultures. And that was one I did. I did a little series on that. That's Leonard Bernstein, the original one I did. Yeah, I wrote it in Russian on the lower left. But that's, again, the piece that I did that they ran. The New York Mirror is who paid me. This was kind of maybe a bit different for me, but I did a lot of stuff like that a lot of people wouldn't really realize. This cutest piece on the left. And it's just got that little sign with the chain on it. There's a lot of symbolism. It's a surreal cubist piece. And I call it Let My People Go. And then I said, well, I call it an African wedding. That's basically what it is, you know. But it has a story. And to the right, I call that Sankofa, a very colorful piece. Okay, that's Malcolm on the left. This piece was licensed by Betty Shabazz. And she was really, really upset over, even though it's pretty been a lot of praise and a celebration of Malcolm, but there was a lot of profiteers, and they were just going nuts selling him when this throwback came back when Spike Lee was doing the movie. And so I had a group that wanted to back me to produce it because I saw that in a watch. I was on a plane coming back from Chicago, and I picked up a magazine and found a watch company, and I thought I'd put it in a watch called Malcolm Time. And everybody just went nuts over it because the timing was right, and I couldn't have sold it no better than Spike Lee. I just needed to add my piece to it, and that's what I did. But she refused the first one that one of my agents went to her because she said he didn't live that long. And what you have is, he has it's just he didn't quite live quite that long. He captured it. So, and he got upset. I thought he was going to have a heart attack because he interpreted it saying no. I said, no, find out what it is that she's saying, because she knew him, she lived with him, it's his wife. So he went back, and sure enough, she said he was just a little younger. And that mine was a black and white. And then I'd seen Malcolm in person. A lot of folks didn't know at that time that he had red hair, fiery red hair. So what I did, not only did I made him more youthful, I added the red hair that most folks have only seen black and white photograph. And sent it back. She licensed it just like that. And that's another struggle too, because that people kept pushing me. She doesn't need to be involved in it. He's public domain and all of that. And I fought with them. I said, well, I'm not Mr. Goody Two Shoes, but I wouldn't want my wife or my mother to see image of her husband everywhere and not get a dime off of it. I said, so if they can't give us something, I'm going to do it. And so, sure enough, they invited folk from everywhere that had anything on Malcolm, including the ex-caps, to Las Vegas, Nevada, to a Malcolm X convention. Mm-hmm. And when they got up there, she served all of them. So my people, they got back to me and said, we appreciate you fighting us because we'd have been sued to hell. You know, so that it went like that. But in the meantime, I didn't make any money. Because by all of that time, everybody running with it and selling it all over the place. So I just put it back on the shelf. But I have her signature where she licensed it worldwide. I can take it out any time and put it back on the market. Of course, that's Nelson Mandela. And that has a story too. That was a piece I first put on a t-shirt, and it sold out so fast, Winnie Mandela put it on when she got off the plane coming to when they was on that big tour when he come home. And I did this in 1990. So I decided to do a limited edition on it. And so that's a piece that I thought would go well with that. Okay, what? Maybe I did. Oh, here we go. Okay, all right. Okay, to the left is Joe Williams when he was younger. I called him, I had a show at the Kennedy Center at the time. Dr. Billy Taylor had him at the Kennedy Center. And so that was a piece that I ended up showing him. He was delighted by that time. His hair was white as snow. But he never really aged. But he did have that white hair, you know. And of course, that I called the Moorish King. And what inspired that, of course, were the Moors, and of course Shakespeare, Othello, which I admired Paul Robeson, because, you know, coming up, he was one, not only my hero, he was a hero to a lot of folks because he fought for human rights worldwide. And of course, they lumped in with socialism and communism and so forth like that, and spoke 22 different languages fluently. So he was, when I was coming up, he was my hero because I had the pleasure of meeting him once in Philly, living in the same neighborhood. My older sister lived in Philly. So but this piece here, the Moorish King, it was at the Reginald Lewis Museum. It was up for 9 months at the Reginald Lewis Museum. Okay. This is just a lady that was a poet, and she set for that back in 1960. And I had an art gallery at that time at the James Brown Hotel. And I had a old time house up the street from her when she posed for that. Of course, this is a street musician. And I did. And maybe some questions that one may want to ask. I don't know what the talk looked like.
I have a question. Are you still working? Are you still painting, drawing, creating?
As much as I can, I'm trying to clear some things out of the way to really get back fully working. But I never lost my stroke. Still have the technique. The older you get, the more you try to get the most with the least effort. Go ahead.
Since this is the year of that is celebrating Bernstein's birthday, do you have anything that that people can purchase or see specifically?
I certainly do. That's a good question. And I want to pass out my cards, and I have enough to go around. So anyone want to inquire about not only Mr. Bernstein, but anything else that they have been able to witness. Because I haven't been out there pushing my stuff like that. You know, I just hadn't been right in the flea markets and on the corners and everywhere like that. And right now, I wanted to be able to do that. And now is the time, I think, because the clock keeps ticking. So, I want to share my work with others.
So will you be doing anything other than just regular paintings or posters? Or?
Commission work. I'll do some of that commission work too. Just like Joshua, I'm not above working with folk, and I have something that they can afford, like that. And then it might go anywhere from one number all the way to at least what Basquiat got. They go that far if they want to. But the point is that I'm still in the community, but I'm not hard selling my work. One would have to appreciate it in order to be able to see something that they may want me to do. That's a good like that. Definitely.
Thank you. I think that was good.
Yeah. It's Mr. Matthew. If you'd like to pass out your card, then what we can do is start switching over in just a moment to JJC Business. Thank you, Mr.
Okay. I want to thank my son over there behind the camera and his buddy. you were coming all the way up from the Carolinas. Over here in, yeah, yes, and my granddaughter is not present at the time. Yes, and my mother just won mayoralty in Elizabeth City, North Carolina. She won the mayors. I was at a swearing-in ceremony. Yes, last year. Yeah, that's it. All came up to support the old man. So, I guess that wraps it up.
Yeah, definitely. So, folks, I'm gonna hand out an agenda to anybody that came in late. Ms. Mackey.